Hello, everyone. I'm Sheila Callaham, and welcome to This Week in the News, brought to you by Age Equity Alliance, a Texas-based 501c3 working globally with companies to make the workplace more age-inclusive for folks of all ages and all life stages. Listen to this headline. Boomers bought up the big homes. Now they're not budging. When I first saw that come into my news feed from the Wall Street Journal, it looked like clickbait, and I refused to read it. After all, any respectable publication would tell the story without resorting to generational labels or sensationalized headlines that make one age cohort look bad for whatever reason. But my colleague, Ken, made an important observation. Wall Street Journal, he said, used generational labels and made statements that could incite tensions between different age groups, whereas the New York Times told the same story without labels and without an inciting narrative. The New York Times story headline read, "Aging in Place or Stuck in Place." This is a great example of how media sensationalize headlines to get clicks. The Wall Street Journal story made some good points, but it was kind of lost in this ongoing back and forth with generational references and some kind of innuendos. The New York Times story was on point throughout. It included more references and data that explained why many older homeowners wanted to move, but just couldn't. And the New York Times also provided more fair balance. They shared data about the number of older homeowners, for example, who still had mortgages, instead of only focusing on the homeowners who were mortgage-free. Did you know, for example, that more than 30% of homeowners that are 80 years old and older are paying a mortgage? That's compared to only 3% 30 years ago. So all of this to say, this economics is impacting everyone of all ages and all life stages. So I want to go back to the Wall Street Journal story. Here's the subtitle. The subtitle was, "Many empty nesters are staying put rather than downsizing, keeping housing inventory tight." This implies that older homeowners are somehow responsible for the lack of affordable housing. This framing adds to this intergenerational tension, and it creates, in some cases, this unwarranted resentment and hostility toward older people. Moreover, indicating that older homeowners should sell their homes to make room for younger families is no different, in my opinion, than the lump of labor fallacy, which suggests that older workers should retire and free up job opportunities for younger ones. It's a fallacy, okay? It's just out there to increase tensions between the generations. It doesn't do any of us any good. So another quote from the Wall Street Journal. "Baby boomers bought up many of the big homes across the U.S. when they were raising their families. Now they're staying put, even though their kids are all grown up." To which I just want to say, and here's another one. "Boomers are on top in a housing market where tight inventory, higher interest rates, and steep prices are making home ownership less affordable for the average family. Many of these homeowners paid off their mortgages on properties that have appreciated tremendously in value." And it's like every sentence reads like a sensationalized headline. What's the point? Well, let me tell you what the point is. The real issue in both of these stories is the economy. It's high interest rates, it's overvalued homes, and that impacts everyone across the age spectrum. Plus, the story framing suggests that younger couples with children are in dire need of bigger homes. And in reality, birth rates are half of what they once were. Statistica reports that in the 1940s and 50s and 60s, The U.S. birth rate reached 24.1 per 1,000 women. But from the 1980s until today, the decline in birth rate has slowed, and there are only an estimated 12 births per 1,000 women, less than half. That was in 2023. So, moreover, the demand for smaller homes is greater than what there is available for folks of all ages. So, downsizing is not only financially impractical in a lot of cases, there's just nothing available. So, I like to read comments when I read media stories, and I really appreciated the comment from Marilyn Jess on the Wall Street Journal story. She said, quote, "Nowhere am I reading about the tremendous opportunity we have to remake how people age in their own homes. There's no mention of ideas on co-housing, using tech to avoid long-term care, or any other innovative ideas. People want to stay in their homes. That is clear. Here's what we don't want: nursing homes, high rents that deplete our savings, and luxury retirement and other 55 plus villages that isolate us." I couldn't agree more, Marilyn. So the Pew Research Center decided last year to stop using generational labels, and they also advised researchers and journalists to weigh the use of these labels very carefully to avoid contributing to this generational conflict. So I used these two stories, the Wall Street Journal and New York Times, which literally were written from the same data source, the same report that came out. And I published my own story in Forbes last week because I believe that there is an ethical responsibility for avoiding inciting headlines and ageist narrative. And to help folks get there, we all need to be calling this out when we see it. Shifting gears, for business leaders who might be listening in, longevity is one of the most significant and least recognized changes on the business horizon. With this in mind, I want to give you a heads up on a conference that is the first of its kind. Católica Lisbon is hosting its first round of executive leader training on longevity literacy this June. The 5-day course will ensure that leaders and managers become longevity literate and understand the impact of shifting demographics on customers, the countries in which they do business, and the careers and motivations of their employees. How you introduce the longevity issue, who drives it, and how it's framed are key success factors in tapping the potential dividend this new age of longevity offers, according to Avivah Wittenberg-Cox, CEO at 21st. Avivah is partnering with Céline Abecassis-Moedas, Dean of Executive Education at Católica Lisbon, to give leaders the deep dive they need to better understand longevity and how best to integrate those learnings into business strategy and planning. Longevity literacy really means being fluent, being aware of these broad demographic trends that are reshaping the world and reshaping business, including customers and workforce and careers. And it's critical that business leaders, as well as a broad range of stakeholders, understand the consequences of this shift. For example, the World Economic Forum projects that by 2050, the global population over 60 will have more than doubled from 1 billion in 2020 to 2.1 billion. Combined with decades-long decreasing birth rates, these demographic changes impact talent sustainability, consumer base, products, service lines, and so much more. At a time when workplace ageism denies mid and late career workers employment opportunities, the conference outcomes will leave leaders more informed on this and other existing ageist narratives, as well as knowing what steps they need to take to overcome the challenges. Registration is ending soon, but I've been told there are a few seats left. You'll find the conference link in the show notes where you can go to learn more and register. Thanks so much for joining This Week in the News, and I hope to see you next week when we'll all be 1 week older. This Week in the News is sponsored by Age Equity Alliance, a Texas-based 501c3 working globally with progressive companies to competitively attract, develop, and retain talent across the age spectrum. If your company wants to understand more about how Age Equity Alliance can support your talent sustainability goals, email sheila.callaham@ageequityalliance.org. You can follow Age Equity Alliance on LinkedIn, listen to our podcasts on Spotify, watch hundreds of short videos to inspire team conversations about age and aging at work on our YouTube channel, or visit the website at ageequityalliance.org.